without erasing the old one? I believe that to be true. All right. So chapter 7, all I did is I went to quizzes, of course, and chose the chapter 7 quiz. Which of the following statements are true? More than one is. An array is a variable that can store multiple variables of the same type. That is definitely true. The values are stored in adjacent memory locations. That's true, right? So if you have an array of 10 bytes, then the first 4 bytes are for element 0, the second 4 are for element 1, the next 4 are for element 2, and that's just because an int is 4 bytes long. Arrays are declared using that. Well, that's quite true. We need those. Once you allocate an array, its size will grow and shrink? Absolutely not. If you declare an array of 10, then 10 it stays. And if you declare an array of ints, you can store strings in the same array. Absolutely not. Arrays, unlike Python lists, all have to be of the same data type. Once you create an array of ints, you can't suddenly start storing birds and strings and circles and other things. So write a line of code that will declare an array of type int, named tests, 5 long with no initializer. And most of y'all have already done this quiz. So int tests 5. Or if we want to be really spiffy and super duper, then we can declare a constant. And then declare it to that size, right? Don't gotta. I didn't ask you to, but that's a little bit better programming. Or maybe call it test size, something like that. All right, question 3. An array called colors, but this time we're going to use an initializer list. And for efficiency's sake, I'm just going to copy that initializer list. So it's going to be an array of type string named colors. So string colors, and I can put a size declarator, or I can let it pick it up from the initializer list. I still like having that constant, so I'm going to go ahead and do const int color size equals 3 and put that there, just so I have that for my for loops, right? And I don't have to call length on it. I can, right? I can always get the size of the array. I can't call length on it. It doesn't have that method in this language. But I can always call the size of the array and divide by the size of a string to get the number of items in it. But it's awfully nice to declare it as a constant. Question 4, true, false. Does this initialize every element in the scores array? Yeah, because it's 10 long. This sets the first element equal to 0. And then since there are no other initializers, all the rest of them just default to being 0. So definitely true. Which of the following prints the first element of the array? Well, somebody tell me what the index number of the first element of an array is.
0.
Yep. We know that. And so which is the last? If it's 10, you can go 0 to 9 because that's 10 elements. What would be a good way to calculate the number of elements? You take the size of the array and divide it by the size of the element. And it looks like the top answer. On mine, the answers may be randomized for you. Anybody taking it? And if you are, is this the top answer?
Yeah, it's the top answer.
All right. And if you have this array, what would be a good way to print the array? 2 are correct. It's an array of ints called IA with a size declarator of 10. For every integer x in there, print out that x. That's definitely a good way, right? That's a for each loop. For every int in there, print IA subscript x. No, because we don't even know that x is going to be a valid index value, right? What if we store the values 100, 200, 300 in our array? We're trying to print out array element 100, 200, 300. No, we only have 3 elements. So that's bad. How about this one? I subscript, or I0, I is Okay, pretend these are single. I need to edit the exam and make those to be single less thans, right? Not doubles. So if you chose these, if you didn't choose the, I need to go back and regrade them, because if you deliberately avoided those because of that, then I marked yours wrong. Anyways, if it was single equals there, excuse me, single less than, single less than there, this would be valid, right? Because print out the IA array at subscript I. That's correct. This would just print the numbers 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out, right? We don't want that. And this would just print an array pointer, right? Some kind of number there. So those are the two correct ones. Using a for loop, a for each loop for every int x in IA, print out x, or I is equal to 0 up to but not including num, print out IA subscript I. Which of the following are true about parallel arrays? Parallel arrays are like when you have an array of first names and an array of last names, and they're linked by their index number. So parallel arrays are two or more arrays that contain related data. That's definitely true. To use them, the elements of the same subscript are related, right? So like the first position could hold the first position of the first names array might be George, and the first element of the last names array might be Washington. They can be of different types, absolutely, right? Because they're two separate arrays. One could be strings, one could be ints, or whatever. They should be of different lengths? No, absolutely. They need to be the same length, right? Because you're going to have this have to have the same number of first names and last names.
Can you hear me?
I bitched out here. These parents have made.
And partially filled arrays. What is a partially filled array? A partially filled array is when you don't have enough data to completely fill the array. So you had to use a counter to keep track of it. So what do? You make the array large enough to hold the expected number of elements, right? I think that I'm going to assign 20 homework assignments this semester, so my array had better be 20, and maybe add, 10 more just for safekeeping. And then you use a counter variable to keep track of how much data is stored in it, right? Because if I've only entered 3 homework scores, the rest of them aren't valid, and I better not process them. And then when you process the array, you should always go from beginning to end, ignoring the counter variable. No, that would be bad news. That would be like doing this. If I go into main and I declare an array of strings, right? And I have room for 5 strings in it. And then I want to be able to enter some data in it. How about a while loop or a for loop? For int I is equal to 0, I is less than the size, I plus plus. Let's ask them to enter a name. Cout enter name or Q to quit. Hopefully their name really isn't Q. They're not a Star Trek character. Alrighty. And then we're going to get that in. So we need a string variable to hold the result, CIN into S. And if S is equal to Q, we're going to break. Else we're going to set that element in the array, right? We're going to set names subscript I equal to that string they just entered. Now we want to print it out. So if we went to the size, I mean, that's our natural instinct. For I is equal to 0, I is less than size, semicolon, I plus plus. Cout names subscript I followed by ENDL. This looks like good code, but it's got a problem. When I run it and it starts asking me for names, okay, I'm Abe, I am Bob, I am Carol, and I'm going to quit. It printed out 3 blank lines. And those lines could have had garbage in it. There's no guarantee that you're going to get output as clean as that, right? Could have been total garbage. So we don't want to go up to 5. We want to go to the number of items that were actually entered. So let's declare a count variable and set it equal to 0. But each time they add successfully a variable, a value into the array, we increment the counter. We could have seen this if we actually printed out the index like we sometimes do. Let's run it one more time and watch that happen. Right. Abe, Bob, Carol, Q to quit. And we don't want to print them all out. Only the first three have valid data. So we're not going to go up to size. We're going to go up to the counter. So that's a partially filled array. It wasn't complete, right? It was allocated to 5, but we only entered 3 names. Bob, Sam, Q. And so now it's only going to print out Bob and Sam, and then the other 3 values it doesn't do. So that's definitely a true quiz statement. Not a true statement that you should ignore the counter variable and always go from beginning to end if it's a partially filled array. Definitely true that you use a counter variable to keep track of the number of items in it, and it's definitely true that you need to allocate the array to the largest size that you expect. 5 may not be enough, right? My class sizes might go up to 40 students, so I might make it be, 40. All right, I think that's it. Nope, there's more questions. Which of these are true? To compare 2 arrays, you compare the arrays element by element. That is true. Or you find a method that does it, but that's all that the method does. A loop is a good way to compare the arrays. Yeah, that's absolutely true. A 2-dimensional array is a grid, like a 3x4 array. If you have a tic-tac-toe board, it's a 3x3 array. How many slots are there in tic-tac-toe? There's 9. So it's these numbers multiplied by each other, not added to each other. So that's not true, and that is. And a nested array is not a valid way to access the data in a 2-dimensional array? Absolutely, that's false. A nested array is the valid way to access the data in a 2-dimensional array. And then this is an example of a range-based loop. Sounds like a true answer already. Whenever I ask straight true-false questions, more often than not, I just make them true because I hate writing a false statement that might stick in your head. But let's check. So for every integer val in the numbers array, print out val. Yeah, that's true. All right, that should do it. That should do it. Are there any questions over that? All right, we still got all of us here. Did I cover 2-dimensional arrays? Somebody tell me that I did or not. I may have skipped them, and in which case, if you don't mind hanging out 10 more minutes, then we could go ahead and do so. Somebody tell me, did you only read about 2-dimensional arrays, or did we actually cover them?
I think there was maybe a crash course session with it in there.
Oh, okay. So it was in the crash course, but I didn't actually cover it. All right, just a second. I need to switch rooms on us. So I'm going to carry you all in my hand as I walk the laptop into the other room. I won't drop you, I promise. All righty.
If you do drop us, do we all get A's?
Oh, I pretty much think that all of y'all have probably got pretty good grades already. Let's see. Okay, so a 2-dimensional array is just a grid. Like that. So we've got a 2-dimensional array, and it's got 5 columns and 3 rows. And so if you want to get a hold of that element, you access subscript 0, 0. The first number is the row, and the second number is the column. If you want that one, since it's in the second row, you use array subscript 1, and it's in column 5, so you use array subscript 4. So when you declare your array, that wouldn't work.
This is taking me back to college algebra.
Yeah. So this definitely would not work because A and B are not constants. And in C++, when you declare your arrays, the size declared has to be a constant value. So that's bad code. Let's go and write some good code. Ooh, look, a 3-dimensional array. Let's not do a 3D array. All right, so down here I'm going to make How about just a 2x2 array, right? Not even a tic-tac-toe board, just a 2x2 array. String AS for array of strings, 2, 2. Now, you may be able to use a size, an initializer to get this going, and I'm going to give it a shot. An array is effectively an array of arrays. So the first value might have yes followed by no. This is the top row of it. And the next one might have good, comma, bad. Let's see if that worked. I'm going to run it and compile it and see if that worked. Going to need our semicolon there, I am sure. I think it ran. Okay, so let's print out that array. Oh, it looks like I have 2 semicolons now. We need a nested loop. So we're going to need a variable to contain our row count and our column count. So const int rows equals 2, const int calls equals 2, and now we can write our nested for loop to handle that. For int row equals 0, row is less than rows, all caps, row plus plus. For int call is equal to 0, call is less than calls, semicolon, call plus plus. Let's print out that element. I'm going to make these all the same width, just so that it'll pretty print. It's cheating, right? But I'm going to make them all 4 wide, so that I don't have to, I guess it's not that hard to bring in IO manip. Yeah, why not be good about it? # include IO manip.
Sometimes you just gotta get a little dirty with your code.
Yeah. All right, here we go. We're going to go down here, and before we print out the element of the array, we're going to set the width of it. So cout less than set w. The maximum size of these is 4, so why not just set it equal to 5, followed by that element. So the element at that row and at that column. And once we're done, since this is printing out every column that's in the row, once we're done typing in all the columns, we want to hit the return key and go to the next. So we got to cout in the NDL there. All right, let's see if it prints out yes, no, good, bad. And it did, right? There's our array. Yes, no, good, bad. What if we don't like the word bad? We want to put some other word there. Well, that's in row, well, since this is row 0, this is row 1, and it's column 1, so I'm going to change bad to good or great. So AS at row 1, column 1 is equal to great. Anyways, you get the idea. We could set all 4 values of them if we wanted to. I'm going to change this width to handle that. So 0, 0, that's the upper left corner, right? So this is, I don't know. That's Fred. And then 0, 1 is the upper right corner. Row 0, column 1. Sam. And then row 1, column 0 is Sally. And row 1, column 1 is Jill.
Gotta set your row on Sally.
Yes,
should be
zero.
one
thank you,
zero.
thank you, thank you very much. There we go. 1, 0, and 1, 1. All right. And there we go. Fred, Sam, Sally, and Jill. All righty. You can make a 3x3 array as well if you want, right? Go in 3 dimensions as well as 2. The initializer would look absolutely crazy for that, right? So I wouldn't bother with an initializer for that. For a 2x2 array, it's bad enough to have an initializer, but at least that's kind of comprehensible, right? This is the top row and this is the next row.
Is it possible to include all those strings together instead of spacing out the rows like that?
Yeah, I spaced them out for clarity, but you could have done it like that, right?
Well, I mean, like good and bad inside with yes and no.
No, because this is how you separate the elements in an array. And so you got to do it, the initializer like that. It's just a mini sub initializer that's inside a bigger initializer. And if you mean yes, comma, no, like that, that would just be one array element. So when we printed it out, it would print yes, comma, no.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Except for the fact that we're erasing it. But anyways.
So you got to declare each one for all the columns in each row per like parameter.
Right. So there's our yes, no, right? Maybe. And there we go, except I replaced that value with Sam. So anyways, yeah, you really do have to use that syntax, whether you pad it out as generously as I did. You really do need to put each element in its own little isolation chamber like that. Each element has to be separated from the
Man,
others.
things got dark all of a sudden.
There we go. So this is an example of a 2D array, and the other one was an example of a partial array. And of course, that was just our class example. All righty. We now know everything. That's pretty awesome. Or at least we know everything that I intended to teach y'all. So are there any other questions?
Do you offer free teaching outside of the college?
Well, if you want some lectures during the summer or whatever, just send me a text message. I'm always willing to get on Zoom and just blather for the fun of it.
No, be careful. I might have to take you up on that.
Ruh-roh. That'd be okay, actually. Another interesting class to take is C#. It's an online course, and it's offered in the fall. And C# follows a lot of the syntax of C++, but it's kind of fun because you get to create graphical user interfaces with it in a fashion that is remarkably easier than it is to create graphical user interfaces with C++, which is why we didn't even do it. So we can be drawing windows and have buttons and pull down lists and stuff like that pretty easily. So it's kind of a cool class.
What kind of compiler / engine do you use?
Same one, Visual Studio.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah. All righty. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the code and upload the videos and stuff like that.